Hello, people of YouTube.
Hi.
I am American.
I'm Martin.
And we had a Lulu in here with us. Some Lulu creepy art on the screen there, but she's since run away. I don't think she likes live streaming very much.
She doesn't.
No, but we are coming to you from lovely Shanghai, where it is almost summer outside.
It's a bit grey today, though.
But it's getting warm. It's not raining as much. Soon it's going to be like a sauna, like a steam bath.
Look forward to that.
Awful. And we have what today? We've got some new art for Alice Asylum.
A little bit.
We're going to play a bit of Folly, Die, Deathy, American McGee's Alice.
Yeah.
And I think we've got some updates on production for Out of the Woods.
A little bit.
Yeah. And what? No?
You don't? A little bit. I'm trying to remember what we did last stream.
Don't worry about that. But you know, we've got news from the factory, right? There's
yes.
Stuff is happening, and I think the same thing is true with Asylum coins and patches. So yeah, plenty of stuff to get to today, and we're gonna start right off with the most recent post over on Patreon, which features a lovely bit of art.
It is lovely.
So yeah, this was sent along by our illustrator Joey, and she's taken a stab. And quite a bloody one by the looks of it. But she has taken a stab at the Tweedles, D and Dumb, which if you've played the first and second Alice game, you will have encountered them. And they are super fucking creepy. And she's made them even more creepy. I think this is evil, but because there's a lot of people out there. Uh-oh, she's turned them into bicycles. There's a lot of hey, you know what she's done? She's magically broken my art browsing window. But yeah, she turned them into clowns. And I was hoping to show you their clownage.
While you search for that, let's give a shout out to our good friend Blade Cisco Doll for being the first super chat.
Wow, that was fast.
Ooh, it was.
What is that? What's that in reference to?
What?
The super chat. Did he give us any comments or questions that we need to answer?
Basically just said first.
I gotcha. All right. Well, thank you for being first, Blade. That's much appreciated. Right. So what I wanted to pop up on screen here was this. Now this is the Tweedles rendered as clowns. How do you feel about clowns, Martin?
I'm not particularly scared of them or anything like that, but you know, I've never been a massive fan either. But for this particular piece of art, I mean, it's very rare. In fact, I probably can't think of any time that Joey has done any wrong. I love everything she does. She's the best.
Yeah, so I'm a fan of this for a couple of reasons. One being that she is continuing on the concept of youngifying. How would you say that? De-aging, youngifying,
year
stripping. I don't know, but she's taken them back to their childhoods, or the closest approximation that horrific Tweedledee and Tweedledum clown characters might have as far as childhoods go. And this is something we also saw done with the Cheshire Cat, and it kind of has me wondering, like, what would a very young Hatter look like, or what would a very young Queen look like? I don't know that we want to or need to do this with every character, but I do think, say for instance in this context, what's been suggested is that Alice would travel to essentially an island of forgetting, a sort of fun land where in her psyche she can escape from the brutal reality of the death of her family. This might even be some function of the level we've been referring to as denial. And these guys could be part of that scene. Of course, one of the things we've talked about is when Alice arrives in the denial stage, everything looks beautiful and perfect and happy, but it doesn't take long before the facade comes off. So I could imagine moving through this world of denial and at some point coming into a scene where things still look great and beautiful and happy, and this is the announcement of the loss of the facade, when these guys turn around and you realize all of a sudden they're the ones in control. Perhaps what we're looking at here is not that great a place after all. So this was her rendering of Denial.
Yes, one of the first ones we got, wasn't it, this pick?
It was, and it's been very well received, and it's a very beautiful render. Turned out great in the prints.
It did.
Yeah. So we shared the Tweedles in these images over on Patreon, and we got tons of comments, especially on the topic of horror. So we will get to those in just a second. But while we're on the question of the areas in the game, I thought we'd take a quick look at something that we've been working on, which is trying to work out the places we're going to visit and also their association with particular characters and themes in terms of alchemy and the hero's journey. I think, what was it, last week or earlier this week, we shared the timeline.
It was last week, I believe.
Yeah, it was Alice's timeline. And so we're also starting to put some work into the concept of the planets in the solar system of Wonderland after it's been blown apart by this chaotic event. And so we may find that the Tweedles are living somewhere, say here on the dark side of the moon, and maybe we'll have the moon be the location where Denial exists, and then there are two sides to Denial. First, the beautiful blue sky, white puffy clouds that she's presented in the previous image, and then maybe the darker dungeon side of Denial. So these guys could be living here on that side, and then that would then kick Alice out of Denial and into the rest of her journey.
I was just spotting a super chat. Somebody mentioned turn the volume up. Everyone else, are we okay? Only one person said that. Maybe they need to turn their volume up.
Yeah, we've been playing around with the setup in here quite a bit. We do have new microphones, and we've got a new lighting array. Yes. And we have been watching our own streams after the fact, and we've done a couple of test streams, and so far as I understand it, we got everything...
Yeah, I thought it was okay.
Fairly well set up. But yeah, if the group, the lot of you, think that volume is broken, please let us know.
It sounds good. Volume's fine. But Anna says it could be higher. Sounds good. I can hear you fine. And got yes, it's quiet.
Well, there is
a bit of a variation there.
There is a knob we can turn to adjust this. Maybe we'll touch that in a moment. But you're letting a super chat get by.
I was going to go back to that. It was Lucas.
Yes.
Lucas Severin. Thank you very much.
What did
Has
Lucas
to get back
say?
to scrubbing toilets.
Oh, no.
Here's some cash. Did we watch the zero punctuation review of Madness Returns? I did.
That was quite a long time ago. Is that guy still making... Is it Yahtzee?
That's Yahtzee. What he was called, I used to watch them quite...
religiously?
Maybe religiously.
Yeah.
But then eventually you just kind of forget about stuff, and not for any bad reason. It just fell by the wayside. I love his reviews.
I thought they were fantastic, but I also kind of got to a point where I felt like it was the same shtick over and over again. And I think that's okay for a while, but I think I was tuned into watching his stuff that was on The Escapist.
It was.
For years. So I think there got to a point where, I don't know, I just was like, I don't have time. I don't know. I think that happens. But yeah.
Go back and watch some, see if it's still as good. Yeah.
So I think back to... The spreadsheet. Yeah, the spreadsheet. We will be posting this up in a more complete form soon and asking for comments and feedback from our patrons. But as you can see here, I've begun the outline of the orbit of the planets. I don't know if we've defined the exact order of, but for sure we're talking about the specific planets, and we're modeling this on the old-timey model of the universe or of the solar system. This was before people had awareness, for instance, of the fact that there was a planet Neptune. And so this may have even gone back to a period in time where there was a belief that the planets, being travelers in the stars or in the sky, they were revolving around the Earth. So it was a Earth-centric solar system. Anyway, there was also a strong connection to alchemy, and then there are also ways that we're going to connect alchemy to the hero's journey and the healing of Alice's PTSD. So this is the sort of outline beginning sketch of that. I've also started to work on some goals. Because as we're playing through things like Crouton's Salad Adventure... Crouton of War. We're sort of joking about how, it's a linear, story-driven, very well put together experience, but it is essentially find the red key card and then open the door and then find the blue key card and open the door, which of course games can tend to be. So I've started working on a couple of ideas for her goals, and I do think the end goal is going to be the destruction of the quote-unquote cruel black dragon. Again, this is going back to the alchemy reference. What do you think about that, Martin?
Of the dragon being the end goal?
The Jabberwocky.
Was the Jabberwocky in Alice? Or did it appear as dead already in Alice?
In Madness Returns, she comes across its bones.
Right.
And in that scene, the Vorpal Blade is stuck in the ground.
But did it appear in Alice?
It was in the first Alice, and she slayed it in the first Alice. So we may need to find some way to have this slaying be figurative, or perhaps... So
not final in some way.
Well, and this is kind of going to the general theme of the game as well, is that I'm kind of thinking that we already understand this first chapter contained inside of Asylum doesn't end the story. In fact, it's a first step, and I'm sort of trying to figure out how perhaps the slaying of the dragon, it's a figurative, maybe that's the major goal. Hey, reach the Jabberwocky and kill him. But it turns out that that is not the goal for this game. And instead, we may come back to something like Alice's personal shadow. That is the part of her, an inner darkness that separates at some point early in the game. And maybe it's stalking her, or maybe she's seeing it from time to time, but she's not recognizing or embracing it. And that becomes the dragon at the end that she, in fact, needs to slay. Meanwhile, she thinks she's on a quest to kill the Jabberwocky. And that would leave, at the end of the game, the Jabberwocky alive for the second game. And it would reveal, in those final scenes, hey, the thing you've actually been fighting all along here isn't some external force. It's not someone else's problem. It's not the Jabberwocky. It's you.
Spoilers, man.
They signed up. They signed up for this.
I did see someone in the chat say something like that. No spoilers, please.
Yeah, well,
it's all still conceptual at this point.
But I think you want to be really careful that if you're listening to these live streams and you're involved in this process, this is what we're doing. We are going to design and write this game here with the fans, with the public. So maybe we ought to put a giant spoiler alert across everything that we're doing, because we're not going to avoid that. There's no way that we can hash this out as a group unless we can have spoilers.
Maybe we should start to put spoiler tags on stuff.
Yeah,
what
we
do you think?
We might want to. But another thing I want to talk to people about, as we go through spoilers and talking about themes and things like that. We mentioned this yesterday. We were talking. I was thinking about a couple of unusual ideas. One is, has a game ever presented... So I've been dying a lot in the two playthroughs of the Alice games. I was sort of wondering, can you imagine a game mechanic where killing yourself reaps some sort of benefit, and might we build some story or some narrative around that? Again, the killing of the shadow, or the integration of the shadow, might be somewhere layered into this, but I was thinking on a moment by moment basis. Maybe you've got sort of a self-destruct button that recharges, and at certain points you might get into a battle and say, fuck it, and hit that button, and it kills you and everything else around you.
I can't think of any other game that's had a sort of a suicide attack off the top of my head.
I mean, I think, as a rule, I've seen games where, weapons you use do damage to you. I hate that kind of stuff. Yes. So we want to avoid that. But I was just trying to think, might you confront the fact represent the fact in this design or in the story that people suffering from depression or PTSD very frequently think of suicide because they get into a cycle where there's no seeming escape from the pain that they're suffering through other than the thought of flinging themselves off of a building or jumping in front of a bus. And so how do you honor that? How do you capture that and allow someone, and is it a good idea to let someone act that out through a game mechanic? Don't know.
I did just think of I forget which Persona game it was. I think to activate your special power, you needed to shoot yourself in the head.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
The other thing that we mentioned was this was the player as Alice's ego or super ego or id, or at least, so it would be a breaking of the fourth wall. It would be a type of thing where perhaps Alice acknowledges that there is some sort of unseen, hidden, powerful force that she feels is compelling her through the world. Well, of course, that's us. That's player. That is what we're doing with the controller in our hands. But again, I was wondering, how many games have had the main character recognize the fact that they are not necessarily the author of their own adventure. In fact, there was a game designer and now there's a player and they're just a sort of vehicle. And this goes to the larger question of how might that be different, if at all, from the reality of the existence that we live day to day? And might we also, through religion or through ritual, find ourselves trying to recognize that there is some greater force in the universe, or perhaps we believe that the universe is predetermined and so we're resigned to a fatalistic interpretation of the events as they unfold. How might Alice approach that topic?
I do like that idea of her being sort of vaguely aware of this controlling force being you, and if that was implemented correctly in some way, put some good thought into it, it could bring you in to the game more. It's interesting. It's one of the better ideas that I'm very keen on. So I hope we can do something very good with that.
Yeah, on a basic level, I kind of like the idea of if you tried to have her make a jump that wasn't possible. This wouldn't happen all the time, or I think it would get annoying. But from time to time, have her turn around or just scream to the heavens, "Why are you doing this to me?" She's not aware that we're a game player, but she's aware that there's some force compelling her to do things that she doesn't necessarily know where that impulse comes from. Are we her subconscious, right? Are we, what is it in us that looks over our shoulder? If you read like Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion, he talks about how across all cultures and through childhood development, you have this idea of children clinging on to like a teddy or some sort of inanimate object, but giving it agency and giving it a sense of self and a voice, and they talk to it. But he said that this is also connected to the voices, what we would call the voices in our heads, and it is those voices which as children we have lots of them, and then they narrow down into a singular voice which becomes our primary personality. But he says somewhere in there's this concept of voices that we listen to that links up with our concept of there being some higher power, a god who's watching over us and that we're talking to. So might video game characters also have that third person voice or controlling influence and be aware of it?
Yep. Seen some people saying, I think fourth wall breaking is fine, but maybe not to the Deadpool extremes.
Yeah, I think.
And kind of the nerdy Pickle here picked up on something that we've...
Is that a relative of Pickle Rick?
I think it might be. Picked up on something we've mentioned before, where Alice would like second guess your decisions.
Yes.
That you make.
That's right.
She doesn't want to do it.
That's right.
Whatever that may be.
Yeah, you try to push her into a battle she's not ready for, and she turns around and says, "Fuck you, I'm not doing that." I actually think that,
as
from
all
time to time...
Victorian children did say, "Fuck you."
I mean, whatever the Victorian equivalent of that. Get bent, governor. Or something.
Get bent.
I don't know. So...
all Victorian children had Bender as their role model.
They did.
Right.
So... Ye oldie Bender, steam-powered Bender. A couple of other things that we're going to play around with is it possible to cause somebody to experience the sensation of deja vu or of having a synchronicity in a game. And so I think going down this path, we could end up in a dangerous place where we're potentially doing something along the lines of priming, which is you suggest a theme or an image or an idea, and then you have the player recall that, or we do some sort of thing that borders on subliminal programming. I think one of the better examples of that in games being the whole "would you kindly" from the BioShock game, the original BioShock game. And I think all of us experienced a kind of, fuck, that asshole was in my head the whole time when the reveal was finally made. I'm wondering, I think Alice and the Alice genre of games, they're great vehicles for that kind of exploration. And I'm trying to think, how do we play that out and how do we pay that off in this new Alice game?
The deja vu thing would be extremely tricky to pull off.
I think it would be. And we talked about this yesterday, that the current scientific understanding of the function of deja vu, or the genesis of it in our minds, is the fact that we don't experience reality as reality. We experience an interpretation, which is essentially our subconscious mind writing a story constantly about what's happened and the decisions that we're making. Or I should say, it's not our subconscious mind, it's our conscious mind writing that narrative, constantly writing a story and rewriting a story. Sort of like people will do things and then you ask them, why'd you do that? A lot of times people don't actually know why they did a thing until they're asked that question, and even then they don't really know why. They just make up a story. So for instance, when you find that a hypnotist has convinced a person to say that their favorite childhood item that they owned was a red leather jacket, when in fact it was a bicycle, they will then make up a story as to why, no, it really was a red leather jacket, even though they know they've been hypnotized and they know that wasn't their actual favorite childhood object. And this is connected to deja vu because the idea is you are having this story written about your interpretation of reality, but sometimes the storytelling gets ahead of the sensory input. And so the story is told, and then it's retold when the sensory input catches up. And so you get a doubling up, a mirroring of your perception of what's just happened, and that results in the feeling that I've been here before.
It's, yeah, like I said, actually getting that done in game, having the perception and the understanding of an event happen the wrong way round.
Not easy.
Not easy.
Definitely not easy.
It's certainly worth thinking about. If we could pull it off, it would be amazing.
Well, and I'm curious to know from the people watching this and over on Patreon, what other psychological concepts like deja vu, like a synchronicity, would you think might be interesting to apply to the new Alice game? Are there mechanics perhaps related to depression or suicide or overcoming those types of things that you think might be interesting to have in the game? We're also looking for and thinking about, in terms of her larger goals in the game, trying to find things. So for instance, I was thinking early on that one of her goals might be to find her inner compass. That is, she's not really sure what this whole mission is about or why she's in this place. And so before you can achieve a goal, oftentimes it's important to establish what the goal is. And so I think early on we might have that be something that she needs to acquire, that is a literal manifestation of the figurative compass that's contained within all of us. I think the Vorpal Blade is a good one. I think early on in the game we're going to have her armed maybe just with her imagination, hands, and doing the head squish. But then she may get some toys, which she can turn into weapons. But at some point she's going to have a real weapon, and I think that's going to be the Vorpal Blade. The life energy, or Elan Vital, she also could acquire this. That might be the thing that makes the difference between early stage Alice sneaking around and only having her imagination, and a later stage Alice who's got a little more oomph to her.
A bit more spunk.
Exactly. So yeah, we're looking for these kinds of goals. We're looking for narrative elements. We're looking for psychological or horror or other sort of just challenge concepts that we can layer into the story. And then we're going to link all that stuff back to the solar system, the planets, the alchemy, and take it from there.
I think it was in the chat a little earlier, I think it was Anthony Movan suggested or asked, where did he say Neptune or Pluto? Where is that? Because it should have been discovered by now.
This ranking or listing of the planets 1 through 7 is going back to 1700 or something. We're talking about pre-Galileo, pre-telescope.
Okay.
This is in the Greek model, in fact, when the planets and the word planets being taken from the Greek to mean travelers, and they were assumed to be, again, they were orbiting round the Earth. At that period in time, with the naked eye, they could only make out the ones that are listed here.
Okay.
That is on Wikipedia. It's on a number of websites related to alchemy. I think this is what we're looking at. And of course, when we showed an image a few streams back related to the layout of our solar system and the chaos symbol, then we had 8 spokes to the solar system, or 8 pieces to the solar system. The first one actually being the representation of chaos. And I'll dig around really quickly here.
See if it can be found.
I don't know if I can find that quickly enough that people aren't going to fall asleep while listening to me click around here. But
need to change the naming of these folders.
How would you propose that be done?
With words instead of just numbers.
Yeah, I suppose that might fix it. I was thinking the other thing could be that our image browsing system here was set up a bit differently. But again, just to describe what it is I'm trying to find, it is the stages of grief laid out alongside the 8 spokes of the chaos wheel, and it doesn't seem...
While you're clicking around, we have a super chat.
Woohoo.
50 sec. Again,
What's a sec?
It's a space-sounding currency.
Huh, what planet is that from? Oh, sure.
Naboo.
Yeah. Is that where Noop Noop is from?
Maybe.
Might be.
Near K. I know this is very early to say, but will you guys have the same voice actress for Alice as the last game? I loved her voice.
Yeah, we've used a collection of the same voice actors and actresses for the last 2 games. So the 2 that I consider to be sort of at the top of the list that need to come back would be Susie Braun, who she does the voice of Alice and some of the other Alice-related female characters, the Queen, the Duchess, I think she did. Then we also have Roger Jackson, who of course is the voice of the Cheshire Cat. If you watch the Powerpuff Girls, he's also the voice of Mojo Jojo. And if you ever watched the Scream movies, it's coming from inside the house. He is the voice of Ghostface Killer. So when you hear the other end of the phone with the creepy voice there, that is also Roger Jackson.
Gets around a bit.
He does. He's a very talented, versatile, and highly sought after voice actor. So yeah. Well, I didn't find the image I was looking for, but this image does still give us some sense of the representation of the shattered islands of Wonderland and the chaos core in the center here, and then these are the bits and pieces floating around, the sun and the moon, and we'll have each of these become one of the planets / emotions / home bases for the characters. And this was Joey's representation of sort of an in-game map interface, so maybe she's able to affect the turning of the orbit of the planets, thereby, like for instance, this could be the way that she travels between the different planets. And I was thinking about that a bit when I was doing the layout in the spreadsheet here. There is this concept of the planets themselves having links to the days. And I think that obviously we would understand that the sun is linked to Sunday. But all of the planets listed here have links to days of the week and they also have houses in which they live. So if you play with tarot cards at all, you might be aware of that. And I was thinking, Alice doesn't necessarily travel to these planets in the particular order we have them listed here, but that might be part of the overall puzzle of moving through the game, is to adjust the orbits or the days, or to approach them as the houses. We might have some sort of tarot card interface. We might have some sort of calendar interface. There might be just some sort of general solar alignment interface. What do you think?
There's a lot that could be chosen for each element of the game. I think there's a lot to choose from. But you'd have to be careful to pick one and stick with it. He doesn't want to fall into the over-complexity issue that we have seen.
How would you describe the over-complexity issue? What's an example of that?
Well, it's sort of like... I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I don't either.
It's sort of like you look at...
Welcome
like,
to the club.
Represents... It could be like represent Sunday as well. So you've got two things there. You've got the sun and you've got it representing the day. If you scroll back up.
Yes.
Yeah. And it also has an owner, so it's also representing the Queen of Hearts, and it's also representing chaos and ego. There's a lot for one thing to represent, I think.
Well, let me describe to you how I would imagine this working. The sun in particular, there would be a level that has a lot of gold and blood elements to it, which makes sense because it's the Queen of Hearts. She is linked up with, like, say, life force and the immune system. We might imagine that her domain has been shattered, and so that the life force, again, this is going back to the life force as mentioned here in the spreadsheet, the Elan Vital. Perhaps all of the Elan Vital has been blown out of the core of Wonderland, and so everyone in Wonderland is struggling to get more of this or is dying. And then we also have just the overall theme of hearts. There could be the, sort of veins and blood pumping through this kind of place. I don't think it's that difficult for us to stylize a level based on these elements, based on these themes, and then also build the story around that. I mean, I hadn't really thought about it, but that would just be like an off-the-cuff, hey, you've arrived in her realm, you're going to find these elements, and as you moved through the game, you might find markers of, or her signature always contains the symbol for the sun.
Yes.
And so there could be a series of clues or story bits that give you some backstory or otherwise connect you back to the Queen's realm, the Queen of Hearts realm, through the use of that symbology.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Just,
I thought you meant the complexity, say, or the frustration that came out of, say, the travel room in Crouton's Salad Adventure.
No, it was the frustration and complexity of, like, the upgrade system, really.
Right.
There was too much. There was like amulets and talismans, and there was a lot to remember.
Yeah.
But we've discussed that we'd hopefully have it be a lot more simplified.
Yeah, for
Alice.
sure. For sure.
I mean, like we said, in Madness Returns, it was collect teeth, make weapons stronger. Done.
Yeah, well, I think that what's being described here doesn't mean that those elements of the game have to be more complicated. This really has a lot more to do with story and art. It has to do with level design and art direction, telling a story that's connecting the whole world together.
Not sort of gameplay and advancement mechanics as such.
No, not at all.
Okay.
You know what time it is?
It's 9:34.
Yeah, we're 4 minutes past due. But we're going to give away something funny today. That thing. There it is.
This way.
Yeah. I just put these in the shop this morning. And while we're talking about the theme of life and death and the troubles that we can run into... Yeah, that's him. There you go. I added this Memento Mori. It's a little palm skull. Very nicely made. Very nicely crafted. Very weighty.
It is. It feels good.
Yeah. We added those to the Mysterious Shop, and we're going to give one of those away right now. But you need to be active in the chat, which I see you're going bonkers over there.
They know what to do.
You know what to do. So we're going to give away a little skull. And I guess it doesn't matter if someone's won before.
No
You need more
jotting.
paper.
I do. I'll do it at the top of this side for now.
Yeah. So I think, we've got a bunch of people there going bonkers in the chat, and Nightbot is up and running. So 3, 2, 1. Whim and Wonder.
Whim and Wonder.
Whim and Wonder, I don't think you've won before, but maybe you've seen before. You need to send us your email address, phone number, mailing address. You should probably mention that you won a skull.
Yes.
And I need to make it really clear that if you don't send the necessary information, I am not looking up your stuff on Google Maps, and you just won't get a prize. So
send it right, or you're not getting it.
that is correct. Send it right.
Although actually, they've not written a message yet. Oh, there it is.
They'll get there.
Woo!
So yeah, congratulations, Women Wonder, on your winning of your very own personal Memento Mori skull. Use it wisely. And I had a lot of fun writing the. Did you read what I wrote?
Yep.
Did it make you laugh?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I wrote up here that. Well, so a Memento Mori, the whole concept of it was that you looked at this and it gave you. So in the original Christian interpretation, it gave you a kind of anchor for the realization that life is fleeting, but you're going to go on to an afterlife, that there will be a heaven. Now, I'm not religious.
Or a hell.
Well, it could be a hell, but that would have maybe suggested that, hey, don't be a jerk because you may end up in heaven or hell. I'm not a religious person, so I believe that our time here on earth is all the time we're ever going to get. And you can still use something like this to say, don't waste the time that you have. I actually wrote on the description here, the average person only has 27,000 days in their life. But yeah, I wrote up a couple things here, like if you put it in your car, on the dashboard or whatever. But when things happen that make you insane, such as being filled with murderous rage at the asshat who cut you off in traffic, or apoplectic at your dog for barfing on the freshly made bed. You know, Lulu does that.
She does barf.
She barfs
when she gets overexcited after eating.
But I don't understand why, statistically, it shouldn't happen so often as it does, that we make the bed and then she barfs on it.
But it's fine, because she just eats it back up straight after.
She does sometimes.
God bless her.
I was wondering if this third point was just funny to me, or it's also funny to other people. Did you?
Maybe we'll find out
I don't know.
in the chat.
Oddly jealous after discovering your partner's predilection for farm animals. I don't know if that's right or not. And finally, suicidal at needing to wait 400 plus days for season 4 of Rick and Morty.
It's terrible.
There's a countdown clock for this.
Is there?
And I gotta tell you, it's ridiculous. 430 something days, I believe. 475 days.
Oh my God.
What's the point of that? I mean, why?
24th of September, 2019.
I just don't understand. Why bother? Just fuck off.
It's unconfirmed anyway.
Yeah, but still.
Maybe it's only 462 days.
It's ridiculous. I find that completely unacceptable. So anyway, there's your skulls.
We can't complain about them taking a long time to create quality.
Yeah. We're 6 months overdue, not 2 years. So that pretty much brings us to the end of our art review today. We only had those 2 pieces of art and the spreadsheet review. There's a lot more story and design stuff getting done, but we're not ready to share all that just yet. So I think we are going to switch over to Patreon comments.
Ooh,
are you going to read those while I play games?
If that's the way it's going down, I'm going to need to fire it up on the old phone.
Yeah, I think that's the way it's going to have to go down. So we got a ton of comments on these last couple of posts. Now, the most recent post had to do with the question of horror in video games. We might actually spend 2 hours just reading these, because there's a lot.
There is a lot.
I did ask...
Oh, gosh darn it. It's logged me out.
So I did ask people to think about horror in the Alice games, and I mentioned that I thought having a bit more horror in Alice, the new Alice, would be great. Mm-hmm. And what kind of horror do our fans like? What kind of horror do they not like? And we got a ton of answers. So I think the general consensus was jump scares are bad. Yes. People don't like jump scares. We have a super chat that is Blade again.
What's the Chinese law on skull merchandise?
So I think that the question here probably has something to do with the fact that there is a Ministry of Culture in China whose responsibility is the monitoring and regulation of the type of media content that the population consumes. So famously, World of Warcraft in China does not have the traditional kind of skeleton warriors that you would find in the Western version. Instead, they've had clothes or meat or whatever put onto them. And so you're not in films or games or music allowed to represent things like skull, gore, blood, witchcraft, anything occult or just sort of weirdly magical. That you see people breaking these rules all the time, usually Chinese companies, film producers, game producers, music producers, but the laws get applied quite heavily or heavy-handed to foreign content, though again that's being kind of, you know, the rules are kind of wishy-washy. It's sort of not clear, but they can use the rules against you if and when they want to. So in the case of, say, World of Warcraft, they did use the rules against Blizzard, and Blizzard had to cover up their skeletons. As far as this kind of thing goes, there's no rules about that. I think actually this it's just considered art. You know, I mean, where we're the factory where we're getting them, they're just like a handmade skull art factory. So yeah, not a big deal.
I'm attempting to log into Patreon, and it's not having it.
Okay. How can I help you?
Well, maybe just do a couple of comments here. We'll start off here, and we'll see if I can actually get into this thing.
I see.
Grr internet.
Well, grr Patreon, they log us out all the time, and I find it to be incredibly annoying. So yeah, the general consensus was no jump scares. There was a lot of mention of like Silent Hill, the old school Silent Hills. And
terrifying.
Yeah, that had a lot to do with atmosphere, art, sound effects, and not so much sort of like, rah, you know, in your face nonsense. BioShock, I think, is interesting that people bring that up because it wasn't necessarily in the horror genre, but for sure there were areas in the game where you felt genuinely scared, and I like that. I like, for instance, in what was the most recent Fallout 4? I don't know. I lose track of these numbers. But anyway, in the most recent Fallout, you had certain vaults that you went into where, unbeknownst to you, the theme of that was ghosts and horror. But it took you going in there, and then you sort of started feeling uncomfortable and uneasy. And wait a second, what's and I think that kind of thing is great, where clearly Alice is a dark game, but I think there could be areas that you stumble into where you suddenly go, oh shit, what's going on here?
I'm trying to remember I was a big fan of The Evil Within. I thought that was great, and I would say The Evil Within is the better horror game. The Evil Within 2 is the better video game. They seem to just tighten things up, make it more enjoyable. But the first one, for me, felt scarier, for the first half anyway, before they started making everything a little bit surreal. It felt as if it was something that could actually happen. I mean, it was just mentalists in an insane asylum, like butchering people, and there was slabs of meat everywhere, and people stitched together, and it was actual, real, physical horror. And as it went along, you know, you started getting a bit more psychological. You'd fall through walls and stuff and into twisty mazes and whatnot. But that was quite scary for me. Yeah, really love that first game. Right.
Well, we'll have to check that one out.
And,
I'll have to check
although
that one
you
out.
Can't get it anymore, the PT demo was pretty scary.
Yeah.
Well, you probably see it on YouTube. I've got it.
Well,
that was a jump scare that got me in that.
Yeah, well, those always get you, and I hate those where someone sends you like a video, even the jump scare videos that you get via chat, where there's some kid bouncing a ball, and you're like, "What's going to happen here?" And then suddenly it's, oh, fuck's sake!
They never get me.
Those get me. And I always want to. That's when I wish that your phone had some sort of device for murdering other people, and you just press that, and it would blow up their phone, and they would be dead. I think that would be fair. So we've got comments from our patrons. Sally says she thinks that they the Alice games were already pretty horrific, and they freaked her the F out. Noriel, is that like a Norwales?
A narwhal.
Anyway, thought that the first game had a lot of horror, good horror, and don't make Alice as scary as, like, say, Silent Hill. There were a lot of comments like this, actually. Please don't make the game too scary, because then I can't play it. I get this. I have friends who, when I watch horror films with them, they do the thing where they put their hands over their face, and I think, but that's what you're gonna miss it.
Super chat. Taylor Preston. Silent Hill. Thank you for the super chat. Silent Hill's more about the paranoia than the actual scare itself, which definitely made the scares affect me more. Yeah, there wasn't much in your face horror, but that crackling radio and the darkness, I was just scared to go into new areas. Just didn't want to open doors because I was scared of what was on the other side.
Yeah, but I think that's always been the rule, and if you listen to horror directors of film, the famous example being, say, like the Alien movies, where a large portion of the movie there's no physical or visual sign of what these things are, and you feel afraid of the whole thing because you don't know what it is. And so, a lot of times in horror it's better to not show and instead have Blair Witch. That was another great one. The sound of the stones clacking off in the distance, but you never saw the monster, but it was incredibly terrifying. Often that is the best way to scare people.
Wasn't that terrifying?
I found
it had a good end.
I found Blair Witch to be incredibly terrifying.
I thought it dragged on for one night too long. I think that the people in the woods thought the same thing.
So back to our patron comments. We've got the real RWS liking BioShock Infinite. A lot of mention of BioShock Infinite, and the funny thing is, as much as I loved the first BioShock, I never played Infinite, so maybe I should.
Infinite, the one in the clouds?
Yes. And someone here is saying that it is a world-building jewel, says Jan Riedel. I think games are starting to become like this. Like, you had me fire up Horizon Zero Dawn, and God, I mean, that is just incredible how beautiful that game is.
To see Blue Crouton.
Yeah, Bluton. Yeah. So, as I move through those spaces, though, it gets me really excited to think about us building these types of spaces for Wonderland. I'm getting, like, really pumped up. And, yeah, so Jan goes on to say that she loved BioShock Infinite, and the only other game that ever captivated her with the world building was Alice Madness Returns. Well, thank you. That's very sweet of you. Igor says yes.
A nice short comment.
Horror is the way to go, with lots of exclamation marks.
There was a hole here.
There was. Then what happened?
Silent Hill 2 and Fatal Frame 2. I like the idea of Fatal Frame, and I have played them. However, for me, I thought the combat was so bad it made me not want to play. Just trying to turn around and, like, take pictures of ghosts to hurt them. It didn't feel good. But I enjoyed the idea of seeing ghosts through your camera. And yeah, there was some creepy stuff going on in there.
Yeah.
So it is, I suppose, a good example of psychological horror.
Everybody likes the way you say horror.
Horror.
Horror, governor.
Horror with a H.
Horror.
Or aura.
Horror. Uh-huh. Get bent, governor, with your horror.
Get bent.
So Rosemary Ingrie says, good horror for me, in terms of mood and style, was BioShock 2. There's a lot of this going on. And also like the original Alice. And let's not forget the moody soundtrack being very important to that. This has come up a couple of times. Do you have soundtrack collaborators in mind? We do, in fact. Chris Verna has confirmed that he would like to be involved this time around, and we also have our good friend Kian, who did the music for Madness Returns, which was fantastic. He wants to come back. That's when you're listening to the intro music whenever we start our live streams. That's also Kian, and everyone's always saying, what's that track? That's amazing. Where do I get that?
Kian. It is available. It's on
his SoundCloud.
Is it on his SoundCloud?
I'm pretty sure
I would say it's
on his
also
SoundCloud.
on one of our Kickstarter Out of the Woods
Downloads.
updates.
Yeah, we
So,
have put it up there somewhere.
It's around and about.
It is around and
Or
about.
just rip it from YouTube.
You could do that, maybe. St. Thomas horror would be amazing, but no lazy jump scares. Yes, we got that. We did get that.
Super chat, Prince Hatter. Thank you. How about you give the characters transformation sequences and make them dark and twisted, like they're crying in pain, begging Alice to save them and make it stop? That would be scary. Joey has done art, hasn't she, where some of the dolls and what they have a creepy transformation nature to them.
You mean the ones where they're kind of smashed up?
Yeah, it's like the doll and the hobby horse smushed together or something.
Yeah, she did do some that looked like... Look how fast I found that.
That was good, that.
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, she smashed stuff together.
Bear doll.
Well, this is sort of like human centipede horse doll. That's... You know, where does it poop? Does it mean that, like,
doll.
one day it eats through this end and poops out that end, and then the next day it eats through this end and poops out that end?
I think that's how it works.
It's just a kind of reciprocal process. But what if they both decide to eat on the same day?
Like a creepy push-me-pull-you.
See, this works because they can both eat up here and they poop out the bottom, but I just, you know. Anyway, so back to the more serious topic of transformation. Yes, Joey has done some horse doll and some bear doll type transformation, so we could do things like that.
Yeah, but if the actual characters there, as he says, were like in pain and begging to be killed, to be saved, kind of creepy.
Well, it could also be something where killing them, you know, if they are enemies, you could imagine that one half of this enemy here is unhappy about being a part of this marriage bits, and it's begging to be killed. Meanwhile, the other half of it is growling at you and coming to attack.
If one half of it was being a dick to the other half,
that would be funny. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great if it was like hitting itself in the head? That would be quite good. Yeah, that would be all right.
Yeah,
well,
good idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea. What else we got here? Kaylee. She's one of our biggest fans. I saw she posted on somewhere Instagram, she went for a glider flight. That looked really fun. Okay. Did you know that I sometimes stalk our fans?
I do now.
Well, you know, they like stuff on Instagram, and then I'm curious to see, like, oh yeah, I see her name all the time. What's she up to, or what's he up to? Wow. And then you go and look, and like Kaylee went on a glider ride. It looked really fun.
Excellent.
Have you ever been in a glider before?
Haven't.
Would you ever be in a glider?
Is it a motorized one or just a jumping off the side of a cliff one? I don't suppose it matters. I probably would, actually.
The whole point of a glider is there's no motor. It gets
I thought it might be one of those sort of like wheeled ones with a big propeller at the back. Didn't know what kind of glider you were talking about.
Yeah, no, this one looked like one that would be taken aloft by a tow plane and then disconnected and allowed to glide around for a while and then come back down. They're really fun.
Okay.
So she says...
You've got a fun story about those, haven't you? Maybe...
I've been in one before.
Isn't it? It was like... Was it in Hollywood? I kind of remember a story where some people were like diving off a cliff in gliders and going to traffic. I remember a glider story from you.
Well, I mean, I've gone what you would call paragliding here, which is the big chute that you wear on your body and you jump off of a cliff. I did that for some time here in China. Is that what you're referring to?
Maybe. I don't know.
You can find a video of me even doing that on YouTube, but I stopped doing that because it turns out, and I'm not being racist here, but the Chinese glide about as nicely as they drive, which is to say not at all. And there were a couple of people who were dying several times due to the constant violation of rules and common sense up at the flight place where we would go to jump off the side of the mountain. And yeah, I went to take off one day, and the guy that was like my coach / teacher, whatever, is screaming to me in the radio to go left. And, you know, I'm right in the middle of the takeoff sequence, like the chute's coming up, and you're not really thinking about turning at that point. Well, it turns out that the space next to me on the launch place, which is really just made for one person, there was a woman there who had decided she didn't want to wait in line. She didn't want to wait her turn. So she was just going to go. And she went at the same time that I did. And so what happened is our chutes, our wings were smashed into each other, on my right side, on her left side. So the only way I could not die was to try to peel off away from her on takeoff. And we both almost died. And after that, I said, I'm not going up there anymore. Because I just felt like it wasn't worth the risk. And the following week, after I decided not to go flying, someone died at that same place. So yeah, don't recommend that out here. I do desperately want to put one of those on the boat though, because there are many places in Thailand, and I see people out there flying around because you can carry all this stuff on a backpack, and then you carry it up a mountain. Or a karst, these limestone karsts, you could carry it up to the top of one of those and launch yourself and go for a fly around. And so, one of these days.
Get one on
Dreams.
Taobao.
All right, so not too many jump scares. Back to Kaylee. We haven't gotten past Kaylee yet. Here is
Tyrion. This will be a long one, because I find it hard to word what I mean. It is a long one.
It is a long one. Try to condense it there, Martin.
Talking about the definition of horror, is it jump scares? Is it gore? Well, probably there would be gore, but trying to avoid the jump scares.
She did give us a teal deer at the bottom there.
Did
so
she?
To answer the question, does the game need more horror? No, she says. But other genres of horror could be explored.
It's a very subjective, the word I'm looking for. I mean, some people there said Madness Returns freaked them the hell out.
Yeah.
Didn't really freak me out.
No.
So it's, maybe a gore slider in the options.
Well, I don't think gore. I don't think gore is horror. In fact, I oftentimes find gore to be funny, just because gore has become so over the top and so easy for us to create in games. The reality is that if you shoot a monster and it blows up in a big shower of meat and blood, it's almost comedic now. It's almost funny to me. And I think it's been funny since back in the Doom days, when you would shoot an exploding barrel next to a bunch of bad guys and they would all go and jib. And so I don't think gore is horror.
No, but there are people who will cover their eyes at the sight of blood and meat and guts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it might be horror to them.
Yeah.
But
this is true.
It is subjective.
Are you able to log into Patreon? Because we do have people saying they want me to actually play Alice. I just want to blame what's happening right now very squarely on Martin.
Blame Chinese internet.
Not blaming the Chinese internet.
Letting me log in.
Because we do have the game up and ready to play.
Well, I could play the game a bit, and we'll come back to some more comments later, and I'll keep trying to log into this thing.
All right, but first we need to do a contest. So we're going to do a contest. So you go bonkers in the chat. We're going to give away... fuck it. Let's give away one more skull. What do you think? So we'll give away another skull, and that will be randomly handed out to all of you there in the chat. Not all of you, but to one lucky winner in the chat. And but you do need to be active in the chat in the last 5 minutes. So, give you a second to do that. I really like these little skulls. I was very surprised at the quality of the craftsmanship when they showed up. It's heavy, and its little jaw clacks. It actually ships with the jaw disconnected from the skull.
They hear the jaw clack. Do it near the mic.
I'm surprised Lulu hasn't come running to get... She doesn't like things that clack. That bite.
She went mental for that poop grab, didn't she?
If we stick this right here, it actually, oh, look at that. It's got a head almost as shiny as yours, Martin. Almost. Yeah, anyway, okay. They've gone bonkers in the chat, so let us ask Nightbot who is going to win. 3, 2, 1. Luna S. So Luna S has won Memento Mori skull. So, Luna, you know the routine. You need to send us via PM your email address, phone number, mailing address. Make sure you do it in a format which I can easily convert into sending this thing to you, because if I have to work for it, you're not going to get it.
Nope. I know what the problem might be with this. I need VPN, because it wants me to do a captcha, and I bet it's a Google captcha.
Ah, there you go. Now, well, that's you. That's your... user error.
Well, I'll have the log to Cloud Valley. I'll try Ninja first.
To you. However you want to do it, Martin. We've got all day.
My best.
We've got all day.
Hour.
So, where were we? We appear to be in the asylum with the insane children. I thought we got through all this, the whole breaking of the clocks business.
Definitely saw this bit before.
But this is an actually very appropriate place to start, because that was Tweedledee or Dumb, and we were looking at their artwork today.
Or askance, whichever way you choose, you must always look in the right direction.
I guess it was there. Right, VPN active. Let's give this another try.
You guys also in the chat, make sure you let me know if the volumes are okay, because again, this is a new sound setup and I don't know whether the game is too loud or too soft or whatever, But yeah, we got through this. Well,
get through it again.
I'll get through it again. These guys don't really seem to care about being frozen. That may not be the preferred method of dispatching with them.
There we go, there's the capture. Ooh, I see a super chat at the corner of my eye. Eric Gently McLaughlin, thank you very much. Your thoughts on Doom 3? Do you agree with id's decision to make Doom a horror game?
No. And I have actually talked about this in the past, that I think that what gave Doom 2 a certain kind of charm was, again, the humor that you found in things like the sound effects, in the animations, in the concept of jibbing. There was a dark humor, and you could hear it when, say, for instance, the characters fell into lava and there was this kind of ridiculous high-pitched scream. That could have been made more realistic, but we made a decision that it have a particular feel to it that wasn't terribly serious, and I think that was what gave Doom its charm. And as soon as it became overly serious and was trying to be genuinely horrific, I feel like it just became another game. It felt plasticky. It felt like it had lost its unique charm. What did you think, Martin?
Doom 3? My
not
PC at the time wasn't very good.
By the way, I want to be clear. It's not to say that it wasn't a good game. I think it was a good game, but I think they could have called it something else.
Right.
And it would have been still as good, but it didn't necessarily have to be Doom.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't play much of it. It didn't run very well on my PC at the time. But it was the sort of, can it run crisis of the day.
This is true,
wasn't it? It was like, it was crazy, power hungry.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't play much. I remember downloading a mod so you didn't have to switch between gun and flashlight. So flashlight was always on.
Yes.
People complained about that. Yeah, I didn't play much, I'm afraid.
Alright.
Sorry.
I think someone is saying that the game is drowning us out. Are you seeing any more of that? Or is that just the one person?
Decrease game volume just a bit. A couple of people say that.
Alright, here we go. We're going over to this crazy panel, and you guys let me know if that has fixed the problem.
Was adjusted. Saw it. Right, finally. I have Patron up.
Took you long enough, Martin.
Luis Soloro. Luis Soloro. Just love it. Haha. Short and sweet. I love comments like that.
But love what? Love horror? Or love the Tweedles?
Love it. Haha. That's all we got.
Alright.
Alejandra Perez Gallego. It was the lady from the portrait in the recent It remake that scared them. You see It remake?
I did see the It remake, and I actually thought... What did I think about that? I think I thought that it was sort of okay.
Wasn't bad. Do you remember the portrait lady?
the portrait lady. Portrait or porch?
You know, each of the kids had a thing they were scared of.
Right.
And the it thing would turn into it.
Yes.
And one of the kids, there was a portrait of a woman in their father's study or something. And she was kind of deformed and her face was all grey and twisted. And then it came to life. It was kind of creepy. I suppose sort of like twisted facial or just like body horror in general. It's quite a creepy thing.
Well, I remember there was one of the things that I get freaked out by, which is the sort of large cavernous mouth with horrible teeth. Like that whole concept was very much alive and well in that movie. Do you remember that?
At the end, where it sort of revealed its true form?
Yeah, I think it was in there. And yeah, I don't know what it is, but I've always been especially terrified by that kind of giant mouth opening up and mauve, horrible razor sharp teeth.
So you didn't like the Sarlacc pit in Return of the Jedi?
That didn't count.
Does it not?
No,
okay.
That didn't count.
How about when they added a bunch of CG to it?
That didn't help. No, I'm going to say no to all of that. Yeah.
What else we got? Ina. Hellblade managed to creep me out. The Darkness Trial, The Wall of Hands, being stalked by the Beast, all of which you have no idea about.
I got bored.
You got bored on the
boat ride
boat at the beginning.
I couldn't even get past the first 10 minutes of it. Sorry, game. I'm sure it's a lovely game, but it didn't. I think the main issue I had was it was freaking me out as live stream content. I kind of didn't feel comfortable
as well.
Yeah, it was. We were having PC issues that day.
Ooh, we have a super chat. Asteria Visual likes banana.
I think Asteria Visual has told us that before.
Somebody told us that last stream. Probably Asteria.
We have heard that. We've heard that you like bananas, my friend. Keep on bananaing on.
And the movie Mama kept them awake at night. A good movie. Not bad.
I think my favorite horror film of all time is The Shining, followed by John Carpenter's The Thing, followed by Aliens. And I think that they all three share one thing that I really appreciate in good horror films, is they spend ages on character development and setup. So you know the first time that you have a hint of horror, say in The Shining, I mean it's probably a good hour into the film before stuff really starts to unravel, you know. And the same is true of The Thing. It's got lots of setup. You know something's wrong at the beginning when they've brought back this ice block from the Swedes, but the actual first sign of something kind of creeping is all the way, probably again 45 minutes or so into the film, when one of the dogs comes in and bites the guy under the table. But by that time you've got a really clear sense of who all the characters are, where they are. It's just fantastic setup.
Super chat again. Banana Taffy.
Ooh.
Okay, thank you for that.
Wait, is that somehow related to Asteria Visual's like of bananas?
No. Apparently, I contacted you a while ago via email. I know you've been swamped. Just coming on here, the possibility of the character of the Carpenter returning for the third game.
Yeah, for sure. I think when I was doing my... And this goes back to Anthony's question about where is Neptune. That actually bothered me that Neptune isn't portrayed in the classic sort of 1700s representation of the solar system, because it would be nice to have the Carpenter and the Walrus on the planet Neptune underwater, represented by water. But we'll find a place to put them, because I really like them a lot as well.
Mr. Curios asks, is The Thing based on true events?
Well, it's based on an even older film from the 50s.
The Thing from Planet something, wasn't it? It had a longer title.
I don't believe that you're thinking of the same thing.
I am. In the 50s movie, it was a plant-based creature.
It wasn't just called The Thing.
I'm sure it was called The Thing from something. Maybe
I wanna,
somebody in the chat can correct me on that.
I want to bet you money that that's not the case.
It was just called The Thing.
I could have swore it was just called The Thing.
Asteria Visual super chats that they also like grapes.
Well, that's good. I like grape more than banana. Banana makes me want to throw up in my own mouth. So I think with what we're doing on the new Alice game, there is opportunity for quite a lot of time at the start of the story for Alice to be in what we are considering the denial stage before the real horror starts. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that as a sort of narrative structure that gives us time to breathe and to get into the kind of feeling of this world, not new world, but this world. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about like Crouton's Magic Third Adventure in the Land of Angry Salad, is that there was a whole, what is it, a half hour before you take up a weapon and attack something. And in fact, the first thing that you have a battle with is Boy shooting, was it a deer? I think he's firing an arrow at a deer.
Magical deer looking thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. It was like a glowy horned deer. And that's the same thing like we were just playing around with. You showed me Horizon Zero Dawn. I mean, that had a massive long intro sequence.
It did,
and
it's a good one.
Does a good job of setting up the atmosphere of the world and the tone of the characters, apart from, hey, you're going to be running around shooting stuff, and hey, here's a bunch of horror shoved into your face.
Yeah. Another super chat from Alec, who also likes grape.
Wow, this is good.
Don't know how we got into this.
We're getting into another super chat
war
based on who likes what vegetables.
Can't complain. But a bunch of other people did say it's called The Thing from Another World. So look who's right.
Oh man, do I owe all those people money now? We haven't figured out how to do a reverse super chat. That's
can do a refund though.
All right. Well, what else you got in Patreon there, Martin?
Luke Kaspar replying to Ina. Agrees with the pick of Hellblade, using different types of psychological horror for the different trials that she goes through. It was interesting, but I didn't think it was particularly scary. It's an interesting game, he puts in air quotes.
I saw that.
Because it's not that gamey, but yeah, it's fine, I guess.
You don't sound really convinced of that fact, Martin.
No. Well, even I think the producer or director came out and said that they wanted to make it an experience, not a game or something.
Well, but you do see, or you did see, for some period of time, that the traditional game press and I guess what you would label as hardcore gamers came up with the derogatory genre label of walking simulator for these types of games. And yet you have a lot of people who quite enjoy a walking simulator. Mm-hmm. Because they're there for the visual experience. They're there. I think the other one I've heard before is that they are being asset tourists, which is to say that the 3D assets that the team lovingly crafted and spent all this money to bring to life that's the attraction. You're moving through the assets. And I don't think that there's necessarily anything wrong with that. In fact, as you know, I'm playing God of War on what is essentially, I think it's even labeled story mode.
Yeah,
it's like
don't have hard fights, just enjoy the plot.
And I'm perfectly fine with that. And I'm still dying. And I'm okay with my deaths. And I understand that I'm not a hardcore gamer. And that's okay. Yeah.
Alec super chats that they also like Windows.
As in the types of windows you'd have on a house or an office.
Or an OS. Who knows? Maybe both.
Interesting.
Blade super chats again. Thank you.
Is he liking doors? Am I
this
sensing a
isn't-
general direction?
No, this is an actual comment.
Okay.
Not a fan of fruit, but loves Madness Returns so much that they're going to import the Japanese version and play it, and only knows about 10 Japanese words.
That could be a challenge. That could be a challenge.
Maybe.
I know a Skoshi Nihongo, and I would not even dare to try to play the Japanese version.
You can usually figure stuff out, trial and error.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah. And Asteria super chats again. Without looking, what fruit do you think Asteria has mentioned?
Watermelon.
No.
No. I should have looked.
Mango. They like mango.
That's a very popular name here in China. Lots of girls, Chinese girls, call themselves apple, mango. Have you ever met an apple or a mango?
Met mango?
You've met the mango.
Matt's
There are, in
girlfriend?
fact, yes.
Or wife?
I think
Did they
that
get
they're
married?
engaged or something. They're living in sin for quite a long time.
Oh, here we go again. Alec, super chats. They like watermelon.
Okay, well, I like watermelon. I eat watermelon almost every day because Yin
I can do it, but I don't like it.
is mental about watermelon, and so almost every night we lay on the bed, watch some crap. God, the show we're watching right now is just garbage. And we watch some terrible TV and we eat watermelon, and Lulu stares at us while this is going on in the hopes that she might get a bit of watermelon.
Ninja Friday super chats. Why aliens over Alien? Every aspect of Alien was greater than Aliens. Most importantly, camera work, suspense, characters. And what are my favourite films?
So it's a really excellent question, and I think that this person has got me dead to rights. When I mentioned those three movies, The Shining, The Thing, John Carpenter's version, it should have been Alien, not Aliens, that I was referring to, because Aliens is the one where there's this tremendous long build-up and amazing character development. Now, I love Aliens. I still think that that's probably in my top 10 list, but this
is fantastic.
This is a correct comment that the Ridley Scott version, directed version of... Was it David Peoples that wrote Alien?
Who knows?
Anyway, that is a superior film, so... Thank you for calling me out on my superfluous S.
I can't think of any favourite off the top of my head, because there's just too many. A bit ridiculous to pick one or something, but I can think of my guilty pleasure off the top of my head.
Porn?
Yeah. It's if ever I want to watch a movie and I can't think of what to watch and I just want to watch some nonsense,
Porn?
porn.
You're not digging your way out of this one, Martin.
I watch The Core.
The Core?
The Core. You know The Core?
Like, core, governor?
Core blimey.
Core blimey.
No, it's the one where Earth's magnetic field is failing and they have to go to the core
Is
in a
that
special
Pierce
spaceship.
Bronson?
Pierce Bronson. Brosnan?
Brosnan?
No.
No.
But I can't think of the actor's name who was in it. He played Two-Face in Batman. I forget his name.
Tommy Lee Jones.
No, the modern Batman.
Aaron...
Aaron Sapsok.
Something like that.
Anyway,
yeah.
They make a special ship and they travel down to the core and they blow up some nuclear bombs.
Is that a horror?
I didn't ask for horror, I just said my favourite, but I can't think of a favourite, but that's just my guilty nonsense pleasure.
But I've told you mine before. You know what my guilty nonsense movie is?
Remember you saying it, but I can't remember what it was.
Come on, it has something to do with sailboats.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
No. Those are crap compared
Jaws.
to my... No. Come on, one more. Kevin Costner.
Oh yeah, Waterworld.
Waterworld.
Westworld, what am I thinking?
That's such a good movie.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, it's nonsense.
It's great. It's super great.
Aaron Eckhart.
I got the first name right.
Yes.
I got the first name right.
Yeah, it's bubblegum nonsense, but I just watch it.
Well, Taylor Preston mentions Sweeney Todd. Actually, that is a pretty good horror. I loved how just ridiculous the whole concept is, that you've got people in a neighborhood cooking other people, making pies out of them. That seems very British of you. Cool, governor.
I read somewhere, or when that came out, that people were actually walking out of the cinema because they didn't know it was a musical.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think I heard that.
Huh.
Lucas Severin super chats with a bunch of crazy nonsense Japanese characters. I'm back. I like to laugh maniacally.
Alright, well, there you go.
Excellent.
I would try to interpret those characters, but I can't look away from the screen. I'm being attacked viciously by monsters from all quarters.
We're not going to get through all these Patreon comments.
Well, you haven't even got back to the post prior to that one, where I'm doing the whole dates, and that's a pretty significant post, you know?
So, Asteria Visual. Don't scare easily, but the Fear game, F-E-A-R,
F.E.A.R.
Yeah. And mentions PT, which surprisingly gave them nightmares. PT was good. It's a shame that didn't get made. Let's hope that Death Stranding is as good. Norman Reedus being in it. Cassie Reeves.
Oh man, this thing's like giving me sucking stuff out of my head. This isn't good. I'm almost dead.
Cassie Reeves would love to see horror in the next game. On the face of it, it should be childlike, but it's actually dark and twisted. Yu Cheng Lo. Horror is about tension, needing to advance, yet feeling fear and vulnerability from an unknown or unknowable entity. Yep, and mentions the evil within. Excellent. What?
Nothing, I just fell. As I do.
Madeleine Fitzmaurice. Sound is such an important tool when trying to create fear. Good point.
This is a very, very important point. It's one of the reasons why I quite enjoyed working on sound effects in a lot of the games that I worked on. So I don't know if people know that, but like if you played Doom 2, Quake 2, you will find that the sound effects in there, many of them, were sounds that I authored and put into the game. Even some of the sounds that are in this game, in Alice, I had a hand in creating. And so I've always been a very big vocal proponent and supporter of the sound arts and the people who create sound and music in games. Though that does not mean that I want you emailing me your sound and music portfolio. Please don't do that. Please.
Or sounds of your farts.
That, no.
Ninja Friday super chats that they are mixed Japanese, and whatever Lucas wrote previously made them throw up a little.
Fuck was that? Some invisible hand just shoved me into the acid water. Did you see that?
I didn't. I was
absolute
busy looking at a
nonsense.
super chat from Ninja Friday.
Alright, so
yeah, who knows what it was that Lucas wrote?
Someone's writing throw up Japanese.
Yes, whatever that is.
Let's not do that. We don't want to get kicked off of YouTube.
Rachel Gaza.
Hello, Rachel.
Horror has been her love since before she was even in grade school. Okay.
What? Look, this invisible.
Look at chat. Look at Patreon comments. Look at me failing.
Multitask.
Which
Martin.
one? I only have 2 eyes.
Yeah,
I can only do 2 of those 3 things.
Yeah.
Always adored beautiful visual combination of horror and beautiful imagery. Hopefully, Alice Asylum will have that.
Hopefully.
And mentioning Layers of Fear. Not seen that. You know the Layers of Fear games?
I've not heard of Layers of Fear, no. Now we have. Clearly there's some sort of steam or other effect that's deciding to push me around here. Not a fan.
And Sarah agrees with Rachel. Yay.
Yay.
Mason Moss. Horror will give the game a much more immersive feel when Alice is confronted with the insanity of her world. You think that horror can increase immersion?
I think I suck at playing this game. That's the only thing I think.
But then goes on to mention Eternal Darkness. which is a big favourite of mine.
Yes,
really
it is.
Enjoyed that.
Yes.
Like I said, once it's got you with its tricks a couple of times, you tend not to fall for them anymore. But it was still good, all the different stuff that it had. I enjoyed the one where it pretended to end early.
Yes.
Like it's like, you have completed the game, you know, continue the story in Eternal Darkness 2. Just in the middle of nothing. It's like, what? Ah, you got me. And the one where it pretended to delete your save file.
Well, I don't know that we want to, exactly copy, obviously, those types of concepts, but I think that there are some interesting ideas to take away from that for the new Alice. I would like for us to mess with the player a bit in that way.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah, so we'll see.
I'm not going to pronounce this well. Katrina Zivolnvik. Wish there were more EU streams. I'm sure there will be.
There will be, now that we've done that and we actually had a really good response. I was a little bit nervous that we just weren't going to have enough people joining the stream. And in fact, we had a really good turnout and our chat was really live and interesting, and so
lively.
We will do that again for sure.
Yep. Oh, Carlo Salazar super chats us again. I remember he did this last time. Super chatted and didn't say anything.
Yeah. There you go.
So yeah, need to keep an eye out for that. Say something. Ask a question. Say something silly. Tell us what fruit you like.
Or just tell me how terrible I am at playing my own game here. But I already know that.
David Dixon. Favorite horrors, their favorite genre. Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Fatal Frame. Yep, all of those. Does mention Alien Isolation. That was great. That was good.
Boy.
Again, no matter how good it was, I felt it went on a bit too long.
Now, was Alien Isolation the one where you had questions about the motives and basically whether or not the other characters had been infected?
No.
Is it the one I'm thinking of? Because I know... Was there not a game based on The Thing where you were kind of like the 6 little Indians stuck in a can and you had the question as to whether or not the other characters had been infected? Is that not a thing?
Sounds familiar, but it's certainly not Alien Isolation.
Okay.
That one is basically... You can't basically win against the alien. So it's a lot of running and hiding. It's very tense, you've got your motion detector with the classic sound effect from the movie, and you can hide under tables and in cupboards and stuff.
Right.
And you see the alien prowling around. It's immensely atmospheric. But again, it goes on for so long that you stop being scared of the alien eventually.
I see. And
it just becomes, okay, it's coming, I'll just hide under this desk for a couple of minutes.
Right. I don't know what happened there. Did that? It's like I just went to the dark black place.
But it was a great game. Hello Salazar. My app deletes my comments. Doesn't have any questions to ask. What's the oddest dish you've eaten so far?
Me?
Yep.
Intentionally or accidentally?
Let's go with intentionally.
Dog, I guess.
Don't tell Lulu.
Yeah, it was one of those when in Rome things, and I don't know. I don't feel great about that, obviously, but it was a thing on a menu, so
right.
Yeah. That would be up on the list, and I think I intentionally ate dolphin. Yeah, that's even... there's people out there who will be even more upset at the eating of dolphin than at the eating of dog.
They might.
Yeah. But again, this was in the context of a business meeting, and I would never walk into a restaurant and be like, give me dog. But in this case, there was a kind of social pressure, and I think now, older and wiser, I would resist that pressure. Yeah.
So how young were you at the time when you got pressured into that?
That would have been 28, 29. I don't know. It was right around the time when I moved to Hong Kong. I ate a lot of weird things when I first moved to Hong Kong. That seemed to be kind of a part of the initiation. It was like, let's see what this foreigner will eat. You know that.
I don't think I've eaten anything that mental. I think I've probably...
But I mean,
horse is probably as much as I did.
You've yeah, but the French eat horse, so that's not considered that weird.
I did that.
Well, the Japanese eat dolphin. That's where I ate dolphin. So, yeah.
Okay.
I'm curious what the people in the chat have had. Was what they think is the weirdest thing they've ever eaten.
No, nobody's mentioned it. But yeah, I'll try to keep an eye on that. Look at the time.
Uh-oh, contest time.
While you do that, I'll just quickly read this from Abdulaziz. Psychological is the best. In the first game, that got that right, with Alice suffering, especially the Jabberwock boss. So yeah, psychological is the way to go.
Alright, so we're going to give away Asylum embroidery patches. These have apparently shipped from the factory to our warehouse in Shenzhen, and so if you were a patron and you're expecting to receive these, then those will be shipping out soon. The patrons get like an extra patch that's not listed here.
Yep.
But those of you who missed out on that, you could go over to Asylum, or sorry, to Mysterious, and you could purchase them there, or you can tune into the live stream and you could maybe win.
Maybe win.
If Nightbot smiles upon you. If you do win, then please be sure to send via PM your email address, phone number, mailing address, name, probably mention the thing that you won, and remember that if you make me work for it, I'm not gonna work for it.
No.
You're not gonna get your prize. So please provide your address and information in a format that a human can read.
Sea cucumber.
Sea cucumber is not bad. I've eaten my share of sea cucumber. All right, here we go. Rolling it. Rainicorn Cupcakes has won the embroidery patches. So congratulations to Rainicorn
Cupcakes.
Patches. And nope, you've not won the Palm Skull, Rainicorn. You've won the embroidery patches. So enjoy your patches. Stick them onto things that need patches. And yeah.
While we're here, taking a break from the game, maybe we could mention freaky fandoms.
Let's do that.
He says, clearing his throat.
That's
away from
really
the microphone.
incredibly professional, Martin. Oh man, this advertising you're doing for Andrew and Deborah over at Freaky Fandoms is incredible.
It's amazing, isn't it?
I mean, I imagine
it's so good. It's making me cough.
Yeah.
But yes, Freaky Fandoms. They do a podcast. Put that up on the website. Where they talk about, like cult films and all sorts of like indie type off the wall stuff. They've done quite a lot of episodes now. It's up to episode 57. What's going on in this episode?
Is that Keanu Reeves?
Yeah, it looks possibly from Constantine.
Yeah.
It will be, because that's the TV Constantine.
Is that Memento guy? It kind of looks like Memento guy.
It says Constantine on the picture I've just read.
It does. I heard that was a really good TV show.
It
I
was.
never
and it
saw
got
it.
canned after one season. It was fantastic. No. God damn it, executives. But yes,
too bad.
Freaky Fandoms, he points to.
Well,
above.
so Andrew and Deborah have been longtime supporters of my work, and they are now supporters of this live stream and of us and our efforts over on Patreon. And so by them being our sponsors and supporting us, you could go over and support them to... Wait, how does that work? Somehow, by virtue of supporting them, you're supporting us. I think that's the point I was trying to make.
Good point.
We're not really very good advertisers. I apologize, Andrew. We suck. But yeah, go check out Freaky Fandoms. They do a podcast, I believe, every week. And, ooh, look, Yule Bowl. Someone once called me the Yule Bowl of the games industry, and I didn't really know if I should take that as a compliment or not, because, I mean, he has been successful.
But he's been successful with fluff and nonsense.
Right. So yeah, this is the interview with Yul Bol. I believe that I actually met him in person once in Los Angeles, and I know for a fact that I went to the production office to which he was attached, and I think it was at a party in Santa Monica with a drink in my hand that I actually stood face to face with Yul Bol and chatted about stuff for a minute. And I think that there was some suggestion at that period in time that he might try to direct an Alice film, but it obviously didn't happen.
Thank God.
But I remember mentioning something like that on Twitter or Facebook, and everybody, they didn't like that. That was not well received. But the guy gets a lot of flack.
He does.
But I think he invites a lot of flack. I've seen his tweet storms or other sort of rants where he kind of goes off quite a bit. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Head over, take a listen.
Please do. Support them so they can support us. There you go.
Ashley Velez super chats. Once you get approval for the game, thank you for the super chat, would you consider going to cons to get more support from fans?
Yeah, I actually like going to cons, and I think the last one I went to was in Sacramento, California, about 2 years ago, and I can't remember exactly. Oh, it's called SacCon or something. SacAnaCon. I don't know. It had something to do with anime convention. I met a lot of fans, and I saw a lot of people running around in Alice cosplay, and was very impressed and humbled by that display of interest. I set up a table, actually, with Roger Jackson, the voice of the Cheshire Cat, and we signed things and we chatted with fans, and RJ was there with me, and we had an absolute blast. Right now, the main limitation is I wouldn't go to one of those unless we sort of had a particular project to push, or unless that con called up and said, hey, we want you here to do signing and do a talk, and we'll pay for you to come out. Then I might be able to do it. One of the issues is that China is really far away from the U.S., and I don't travel to the U.S. lightly. There needs to be a pretty strong incentive to do so. So we'll see, though. I think we actually did mention this when we showed off the PPT last week, that one of the alternative, or actually for us it would be one of the primary means of raising awareness of the new Alice game would be to go to the cons.
Yes, it would. And another super chat came in pretty quickly. Toxzilla again. How did you go about picking Sam Gusway to voice the Carpenter? I googled him, and it looks like he's mainly a writer.
Well, I think it was through the use of a voice acting agent that we came across that voice. I don't want to be too specific about that, because I know that there was a mix. We had some voices in the game that came from people in the studio. We had voices in the game that came from previous relationships like Roger Jackson and Susie Braun. And I do believe that people like Sam Gusway, the guy who voiced Bumby as another example, they all came through an agency. The agencies have a list of people who will provide voice acting. We may not have known who Sam Gusway was as a writer, but we would have listened to his demo reel given to us by his agent, and we would have picked voices based on demo reels. And now I believe RJ handled the bulk of the voice casting, and that would make sense because he writes the bulk of the dialogue. And so that would actually be a question for him to get the exact answer, but that's the general shape of how I imagine we would have ended up with that person.
Didn't you tell me that the Bumby actor didn't want to be credited?
That's correct.
Because of the terribleness of the character?
That is correct. I think we actually lost the first choice. We chose a voice actor for Bumby, and once that person was sent lines, they flat out refused to read that character. They did not want to be a child molester. Go figure. But then the second person that we chose was willing to be the character, but unwilling to be credited as that character. And so I think that the character just isn't credited. Fuck's sake. Oh boy.
I actually found out who it was the other day.
Did you? Did you dox him?
Yeah.
Did you go to
I
his...
was surprised by who it was. I mean, it's reasonably famous.
And who is it?
I'd say he doesn't want to be credited.
Well, it's
if
like
they want
5
to find
years
out,
on.
If they want to find out,
I want to find out.
It's easily find outable.
I want to find out, Martin. Tell me.
I'll tell you after the stream.
Oh God. There's not going to be an after the stream for you, Martin.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that person didn't want to be credited, and fair enough. I mean, I think that's a common request, not to, sort of end up associated with a highly negative character. People can end up being typecast or stereotyped as actors or voice actors if they take on roles like that. So,
Blade Siskadol, super chats again. Thank you.
Again and again.
I'm not sure if you're allowed, but it's scrolling off. But yeah, can you click that? It's starting to scroll off.
Come on, Martin. I'm trying not to die here. Read faster. Oh man. Ah, jeez, Rick.
Ah, jeez.
I'm not exactly sure if you're allowed to, but how about setting up an interview about Alice Asylum with a company like Rooster Teeth? Could help out. Really, there's nothing sort of allowed to or not allowed to when it comes to that sort of thing. Main consideration right now is simply timing. We are probably a bit early to be doing super heavy promotion. As we've mentioned in previous streams, the next step is to put this presentation in front of EA. That's... Okay. I'm getting tired of this section of the game. Did you know that?
I know now.
I'm just about over it. And it doesn't seem that it's ending anytime soon here. Can we have another contest or something?
In 20 minutes.
Ah, God.
People say, Martin, come on, Martin. I don't know why they're saying that. Maybe because of the super chat. Yeah.
Oh, they want to know who the actor is.
Oh.
Well, if someone in the
it's
chat...
on YouTube. Just look for Alice voice actors.
Okay, well, somebody in the chat, go look it up and then paste it into the comments. I would appreciate that. And it would be a big F you to Martin for not telling us.
It would be a big F you.
Yeah, it's big enough.
Care.
Well, if you don't care, then just tell us.
I'm just honouring the man's wishes to not be credited.
Martin is really annoying. Lulu, get in here and bite Martin. So
we're never going to get through these Patron comments.
It's your fault. It's you. It's all on you.
It's them super chatting, asking questions and stuff.
Telling us their favourite fruits.
Things. There he goes. The great Jabberwock.
Yeah. Alistair McGowan.
Yeah, reasonably famous person.
Why is
in
that?
England? Just TV personality. Does impressions and comedy skits and whatever.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty famous.
Huh. Well, that might have some relationship to his hesitance of being identified.
Maybe.
It's one thing for a relatively unknown voice actor to be in that role, but for someone who has existing notoriety, maybe not. They can view the risk against the current level of success and then say, yeah, this is not for me.
Yeah.
Don't blame him.
Evan Greenwood.
Our good friend Evan, who came along for Pirate Jam and produced Cult Smashers, which we played a bit during the last test stream.
Thinking about the clown image, making the horror more obvious might not make it scarier.
This is true.
The cheerfulness of Wonderland is a dangerous setting. Dark, twisted, lurking in the periphery can be more inexplicable, unknowable, and scarier.
What was that? Lurking in the what?
Periphery.
You said periphery.
Did I?
You did.
Periphery.
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 Yeah. Alice could still look darker than previous games with the beautiful environments, but the horror could come with her changing relationship to the world.
There you go. How about the horror of me not being able to progress past this particular section of the game?
What if we put something in the game that just can't be done?
That's pretty horrific.
Yeah. You have to like cheat or hack your way past it.
Is frustration on the spectrum of horror? I don't think so. I think that would be on the spectrum of anger, and probably not beneficial to the sale of our product.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Sarah Dam.
Oh, God.
Loves the environment and feel of madness returns, and hopes that Asylum would have the same quality, but amp up the spooky and psychological reality. Okay, so TLDR, a bit more spooky can't hurt, but don't make it like a pure horror game. Thank you.
Right.
Heart.
Heart.
Yasmin Amir, this just made them more excited for the game. An avid horror lover, these pictures stir something within me.
Wow,
It's very
there you
poetic.
go. It is. Stir your guts, perhaps.
And again, it mentions sound possibly being the more important element.
There you go.
Okay.
I agree with that. I think environments which are creepy, but filled, importantly, filled with creepy soundscapes, that's a very good way to go.
That was Yasmin, and now we have a Jasmine, who loves horror, games and movies, but doesn't think most American horror movies are really horror. I'll be talking about jump scares here, and loud sounds. The Japanese, Chinese, Thai horrors are much better. Psychological horrors like Ju-on.
Those are very good.
I did like Ju-on.
Yep, those are, this is
Very
true.
good.
Well, it's funny, the other day we were going through a list of potential movies to watch here at home, and there are a bunch of horror films, and Yen says not watching a Chinese, Japanese, or Korean horror, but she's fine to watch American horror. And, yeah, it's...
In obviously of my amazing knowledge of women, which I do not have, I noticed the difference between Western and Eastern women when it comes to watching horror. I've noticed in the West, they don't want to see what's scary. A girl will cover her eyes if something terrible is going to happen. But I've noticed over here, they cover their ears.
Interesting.
A lot of the time. They don't want to hear the noise or something.
Yeah, very
It's just
interesting.
something that stood out to me.
I've never seen that before. Yeah.
Go figure.
Fortunately, I made it through that section, and just in time for Chaussette to send Canadian $10 with a good morning, and here's some dollars to get you brain fuel. What is brain fuel?
What would be brain fuel these days? Because it's not wine
No,
anymore.
we gave up drinking.
Although I had one cider last night.
Ah, Martin, you broke the streak. We were
Sorry,
2
I was
weeks
out.
in of no alcohol, and Martin went and drank a cider yesterday.
Sorry.
Did that have anything to do with yesterday's stressful event?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think it did.
I went out and had some Hong Shao Ro to cheer myself up.
Yeah. Well,
So,
there you go.
then had a cider.
You gonna tell people what you're upset about?
No, I'm just going to read some more Patreon comments.
Martin's upset that I'm
Not
moving.
upset.
Freaked out. I think Martin's freaked out that
Yes.
I'm moving.
American is moving.
Yeah.
So no longer will we be living 1 kilometer away from each other, which makes doing this extremely easy
Yep.
and handy.
Yep.
He's moving 20 kilometers away,
Yep.
which for I think most people
Would
watching,
consider
would be
that to be
that's a
nothing.
different city. But in
No.
Shanghai, it's not.
No. I think for most people watching, that's just a normal drive across the city. So, like when I lived in, say, Dallas, I mean, I lived 20 kilometers away from my office. For sure, when I worked at EA, I lived in the city, in the marina, which is down by the Golden Gate Bridge, but I worked in Redwood Shores. And the drive along the 101 to get to work every day was a 1+ hour long affair, and was greatly improved by the .com crash. That would have been one of the side benefits that came out of the .com crash, was that suddenly the traffic improved. But a 20-kilometer anything is really nothing, I think, for most people.
No, I've never traveled 20 kilometers to work in my life.
Well, get ready.
Get ready. So, yeah, he's moving out close to Hongqiao Airport. Apparently it's very beautiful out there.
Beautiful out there.
And the cost of living is probably 50% off
Yes.
of what it is here in downtown Jing'an.
Yep. Well, our rent, I've been living in this place for 8 years, and the rent has consistently gone up 30% with every new contract. That is to say, every 3 years the rent's gone up 30%, which is 10% per year, which is pretty much in line with general inflation here in China and Shanghai in particular. You think about that, it means that every 5 or 7 years, the cost of everything essentially doubles. And I think you get that when you have a 7% inflation rate. You get every 5-year doubling. I can't remember the exact math, but anyway, it's nuts. It's crazy. I mean, you're constantly fighting off the fact that your rate of income is being constantly outpaced by the ever-increasing cost of living, be it rent, food, clothing, you name it. What's going on in this level?
What's going on there?
No. I feel like I'm doing this all wrong. I'm not really paying attention. But yeah, so Yen and I are going to move out to Hongqiao. It's actually called Qingpu District, which is on the back side of the Hongqiao airport. They've built this massive convention center out there. It's called the National Expo Center for China. And there's a YouTube video about it, and it's unbelievable how big this thing is. And the airport's out there, the train station is out there, there's this massive transportation hub, and like Martin said, the cost of living out there is significantly less. So we're here in Jing'an District for the same amount of money that we're paying here for a 140 square meter apartment. We're going to get a total 300 square meters of interior usable space, plus another 100 square meters of yard and an actual garage. I can't believe it. It's like night and day. So yeah, you're gonna have to come out there, Martin.
Well, that's it. That's the option. I either stay here and travel, or go there and only travel when I want something. Yeah. So I don't know if many of you in the chat know, but we've talked about my travel anxiety in the past. I do not enjoy travelling up on the busy highways or in the claustrophobic subways. So yeah, I think moving out there is probably gonna have to happen.
Yep.
But I had just moved house anyway.
Yep.
So
but you don't like your house.
I like my house. I don't like the people who live nearby. They're all really petty. They keep messing with my scooter if it's in their special place.
Do you like your bathroom setup?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
The shower's okay, because that's in my apartment. But it's a shared bathroom.
As it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the actual rooms, the living room, the bedroom is nice. Got a big window pointing west for my chili growing. It's got good aspects.
Right. Well, I think that
yeah,
you're gonna move out there, and yeah, Lulu's gonna have a yard. I'm gonna have a garage which I can turn into a mental workshop, and I can weld and 3D print and laser cut and all kinds of fun stuff like that. And as it pertains to what we're doing right now, we're gonna have a massive amount of space to set up this YouTube studio. The limitation we have right now is that the table we're sat at, we just can't contain all the physical stuff that we're making, and we're actually in a very cramped space. We can't back up. It's quite difficult to move around in here. So this was another one of the inspirations for making the move, was so that we could expand out this side of the operation to some degree.
It is. I've seen pictures. It's a big old space that the studio can be in. Massive.
I built this level. I remember this clock hatter, what do you call it? But yeah, this is one of the few things that I'm certain that I contributed to in the level design of this game. So I don't know if this comes off as being particularly in my style as a level designer, but there it is.
Jennifer says, get a Glowforge for your garage.
Yeah, the problem with the Glowforge, Jennifer, and I've been lusting after it since the first time that I saw it, is that it, and also, like, for instance, I think it was Dremel who recently announced that they're putting a laser cutter into the market. They both use web-driven interfaces for the design and control interface. So there's an app, and then the app talks to the device. Well, the problem is that the app, a lot of them use Google services, and I've actually written to both the Glowforge guys and to Dremel, and I've said, are you using Google services for... Am I gonna die in here? I'm gonna blame Jennifer. I blame you, Jennifer. So yeah, they both use Google services, and as you probably know, Google is a bit of a problem here in China, though we do have sort of always on VPN sometimes now. Anyway, it's a consideration. It's the kind of thing where you could spend all this money to buy a really cool piece of kit and then find that it won't run in your house because of the restriction on Google in China.
So is it just a laser cutter?
It's a laser cutter, but it's got a really cool interface. And unlike the one, I have one here, it's one of these cheap and cheerful Chinese ones. I think it's a 40 watt, and it can do some fairly decent kind of projects with wood and acrylic. The issue with it, though, is that it's very finicky. You've got to set everything up by hand, and you have options with, like, the Glowforge, for instance, if you could just draw with your hand onto a material and then tell the Glowforge, cut that path, and it'll look at the material, it'll look at the path you've drawn, and it will do the thing.
Excellent.
Whereas that's not an option with the one that I have, so yeah.
Alright. Nekoi 16 super chats us. Thank you. Save.
I did.
Save often.
I did.
You sure?
I just saved.
Save often.
Literally just saved. It hasn't really been a problem in recent streams. I have been saving and saving often.
Okay.
Now we're getting pretty close to the end of our stream. I think we're going to do one more contest.
So much. There's loads of comments.
One more contest, Martin,
okay.
and then we're done. But do you want to do the little wrap up of like all the things people can do to help support? You could also maybe mention the Chaos Coin.
Okay. So, if you want to help Alice Asylum become a thing, go to AmericanMcGee.com. There's a handy list of 4 things that would certainly help. 2 are completely free, another 2 if you've got a little money. Sign up to the mailing list. We only require real emails, please. Don't be setting up fake ones or using your grandma or anything.
Dead grandma.
Dead or alive.
Well, you can use your grandma as long as she's actually an Alice fan. The point is, don't sign up your dead grandma, because when it comes time for us to do crowdfunding or to prove to whatever publisher that there are really all these people out there who want to play the game, you don't want them like trying to send emails to your graveyard. That's all.
So yes, sign up to that, please. The next one is just follow the social channels. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all of that fluff. Thirdly, support our Patreon. Lots of art is shown there, like 2-3 days before the rest of the world gets to see it. You get all of the comments directly to American. And as a special thing, we do physical goals and giveaways. The last one we did was for hitting 1,000 patrons, and that was the embroidered patches. The next one, for when we hit 2,000 patrons, is a physical, an actual Chaos coin that you will get. And ownership of that means that in Alice Asylum there will be a virtual version of the Chaos coins, and your name will be attached to that coin. So via some method or other, you can get your name in Alice Asylum on a Chaos coin. That is for when we reach 2,000 patrons.
Where are we at now?
About 1,250-ish. So
like
there's
that.
still a little bit to go.
Yeah, we got a ways to go.
So
We haven't really been marketing that very hard. We're waiting
to get the coins.
Exactly.
But here is a Pirate Jam coin in a holder that we've been investigating. And they are... There we go.
Doop.
Ooh.
There you go.
See, this was done for Pirate Jam.
This turned out really nice.
Yeah, so it's going to be very similar, but it's going to be Alice-esque.
Yeah.
Cheshire Cat on one side,
Chaos symbol,
Chaos
on,
symbol
the other.
on the other.
Yep.
And yes, if you want to hack Patron, you can join us at a lower level for as long as you want, or as long as it takes to get to 2,000 patrons.
Exactly.
Bump it up to the required level for that 1 month to get the Chaos coin, And then after that, bring it back down, increase it, cancel your pledge, do what you like. But yeah, we need patrons to actually get it up to 2,000 in the first place. So, yeah, if you would like to do that, please, that would be amazingly fantastic.
That's how we pay for all the artwork and all the product development, all the little bits and pieces that we're doing right now. There is design getting done, there's art getting done, there's narrative getting written, and there is all the thought that's being put into how the crowdfunding is going to work, how we're going to market this thing. Obviously, many of you have seen the PowerPoint, which is chock full of very expensive art.
Very.
Yeah, so your support over there on Patreon makes all that possible, and like Martin was saying, even if you just put in $1 per month, that gives you access to all the art and being able to comment and provide feedback. What are they doing with that insane child? Putting him into a machine. That's not very nice.
It might be a cuddle machine.
I don't think it's a cuddle machine. I think it's a convert him into robot machine.
All right.
Now, I was thinking in Asylum, we're gonna need to foreshadow this. It's the Hatter's Workshop, obviously the alchemy elements. I think I've got some idea that he's invented something that he thinks, or we think, is partly to blame for the destruction of Wonderland at the point where we enter into Asylum. And it'll be more of this kind of nonsense. He does pretty crazy stuff.
Nice.
No, I don't think these guys are doing very well. He's got his lip stapled to his chin. Not nice.
The fourth thing that you can help us with is just go over to Mysterious. Sorry. Where there are t-shirts, art prints, books, necklace,
Wallets, skulls, all kinds of
See if
stuff.
there's anything over there that you like the look of.
Well, Out of the Woods will be selling over there soon as well.
It will. My photo's gone terrible.
Yeah, Martin,
Need to,
you're completely useless. We can't use you for advertising, for marketing, for reading comments.
Yeah.
You won't provide the name of the man who wishes to remain unnamed.
I'll just quit. Yenny can help present.
I'm going to teach Lulu how to be my co-presenter. I think people would really appreciate that. Unfortunately, she only knows one word. Griff! And that's not going to get us very far. Alright, I'm saving, and we are going to go and do our final contest giveaway of the stream. And what are we giving away? Embroidered patch.
Patch. Yeah, 2 skulls, 2 patches today.
Alright, so you want to win a patch, you got to say something in the chat so Nightbot sees that you're there. If you do win, you'll want to PM me your mailing address, your phone number, name, the fact that you won a set of patches, and your email address. And again, I cannot stress enough, if I have to work for it, I'm not going to mail you a thing, because I've done enough of that. I feel I've done my duty. I've paid into this system, and it's your turn.
You've done your duty.
I have done my duty. I had a duty this morning. Very regular.
Okay.
All right. So, before we go further down that particular rabbit hole, 3, 2, 1, and Julia Burke.
Julia Burke.
Congratulations, Julia. You have just won your very own set of embroidered patches. These are very fine patches produced right here in China, presented on a beautiful card background. And on the back of that card is something that looks like an Asylum illustration, like that. And then you get some patches, which were done by our friend Jennifer Dar. That's the pirate version of Jennifer.
Pirate Jennifer.
And yeah, Pirate Jennifer produced the artwork for these patches, and then our good friend Alex Crowley did the... That's actually the more meat, less stick version of the logo.
More meaty.
It's pretty meaty.
Nekoi, super chattered, just sending loves.
I thank you, Neko.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated.
We do like loves and hearts.
Very, very, very kind. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of today's stream. So we'd love to hear your comments and feedback and criticisms, especially of Martin's
terrible throat.
Exactly. In the comments below, I am traveling to the U.S., visiting Dallas, Texas next week. That means we will not be back with a live stream next week, but we will be back the week after. And I'm sure that by that time, we're going to have tons of new artwork, story, design, and coughs.
I'll save them up.
Save them
for
up.
The next stream.
Put them in a bottle. And I'll put farts in a bottle and we can trade.
I don't want your farts.
Even if they're in a nice bottle?
Maybe then.
It'll be a lovely bottle. So until next week, we hope the rest of you out there have a great week, time, whatever.
Life.
Have
a great life.
You know, look at your skulls and just think about the fleeting nature of life.
Yes.
And we'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.